"Get your hands off my son!" The desperate cry echoed through the night as flashing red and blue lights painted the quiet street in chaos. In a split second, a gunshot shattered the silence, leaving a young black man, the son of a decorated Navy SEAL, lying motionless on his own front lawn. Neighbors watched in horror, phones trembling in their hands, as the officer's voice crackled over the radio. "We need backup, now." But what happened next would leave the entire community and the nation reeling. Why did Special Forces surround the house just hours later? And what secret were they trying to keep buried? Stay with me. Before that night, Marcus Johnson was just another face in the neighborhood, a college-bound senior with a quick smile and a love for basketball. His father, Chief Petty Officer David Johnson, was a local hero, a Navy SEAL who'd served his country with honor and returned home to raise his only son. Their house, tucked on a quiet street, was filled with laughter, family photos, and the smell of Sunday dinners. Marcus had dreams bigger than their small town. He volunteered at the community center, tutored younger kids, and wore his father's old SEAL cap with pride. To his friends, he was the guy who always had your back. To his teachers, he was a future leader. To his father, he was everything. But beneath the surface, there were cracks. Marcus had noticed the way some people looked at him when he walked home at night, the way store clerks watched him a little too closely. His father warned him to be careful, to always be respectful, to never give anyone a reason to doubt his character. "You have to be twice as good, son," David would say, his voice heavy with experience. No one could have predicted how quickly their world would change. That night, a single misunderstanding would ignite a chain of events that would test everything. Marcus and his father believed about justice, loyalty, and the place they called home. And as the sun set on their quiet street, a storm was already brewing, one that would force the entire community to confront truths they'd tried to ignore. It started with a knock, loud, impatient, echoing through the Johnsons' home just after sunset. Marcus was in the kitchen, laughing with his dad over a burnt batch of cookies, when the sound made them both freeze. David's instincts kicked in. He motioned for Marcus to stay back as he opened the door. On the porch stood Officer Reynolds, a face Marcus recognized from around town. But tonight, the officer's eyes were cold, his hand resting on his holster. "We got a call about a suspicious person in the area," Reynolds said, his gaze fixed on Marcus. "Mind if I ask you a few questions?" David stepped forward, calm but firm. "This is my son. He lives here." But Reynolds didn't back down. He asked Marcus to step outside, his tone sharp, his questions loaded. Where was he earlier? Did he have any ID? Why was he wearing a hoodie? Marcus tried to answer, but his voice shook. He could feel the weight of the officer's suspicion, the way his father's jaw clenched with every word. Neighbors began to gather, drawn by the flashing lights and raised voices. Some filmed from their porches, others whispered behind closed doors. Marcus felt exposed, like every eye was waiting for him to make a mistake. Then things escalated. Another patrol car pulled up, then another. Officers fanned out, hands on, their weapons. David tried to reason with them, showing his Navy SEAL ID, explaining that Marcus had been home all evening. But the officers barely glanced at it. Their focus was on Marcus, on his skin, his hoodie, his fear. "Don't move," Reynolds barked, as Marcus instinctively reached for his phone to call his mom. In a split second, everything spun out of control. A shout, a scuffle, the glint of a badge, and then a gunshot. Marcus collapsed, his father's scream tearing through the night. The world seemed to stop. For a moment, there was only silence, broken by the distant wail of sirens. David dropped to his knees, cradling his son, begging him to hold on. The officers shouted for him to back away, their guns still drawn, their faces pale. But the nightmare wasn't over. As paramedics rushed Marcus to the hospital, rumors spread like wildfire. Some said Marcus had attacked the officer. Others claimed he was armed. The truth was lost in the chaos, buried beneath fear and prejudice. Hours later, as David sat alone in the hospital waiting room, his phone buzzed with a message that made his blood run cold. Special Forces had surrounded his house. The same men he'd served with, now treating his family like enemies. Why? What did they think they'd find? And who had given the order? Outside, reporters gathered, hungry for a headline. Inside, David's world was unraveling. He replayed the night's events over and over, searching for the moment everything went wrong. But the answers were as elusive as justice itself. And as the clock ticked past midnight, one question haunted him. Would the truth ever come out? Or would his son become just another name, another headline, another life lost to fear and misunderstanding? David's hands trembled as he pulled up to his own house, now unrecognizable behind a wall of armored vehicles and armed special forces. Floodlights turned night into day, casting harsh shadows across the lawn where just hours before he and Marcus had joked about burnt cookies. Now red tape fluttered in the wind, and the air was thick with tension and disbelief. He stepped out, hands raised, his Navy SEAL badge glinting under the lights. "That's my home. My son is in the hospital. What are you doing here?" he shouted, voice cracking with desperation. But the men he once called brothers didn't lower their weapons. Instead, a commander barked orders, and a team swept past him, storming the house as if it belonged to a stranger. Inside, drawers were ripped open, family photos tossed aside, Marcus's childhood trophies shattered on the floor. David watched, powerless, as the life he'd built was torn apart in search of something that didn't exist. "We have reason to believe there's a threat," the commander said coldly, refusing to meet his eyes. "We're just following protocol." David's anger boiled over. "Protocol? My son is fighting for his life because of a lie, and you're treating us like criminals." His words echoed, but no one answered. The neighbors watched from behind curtains, some filming, others just staring, as if witnessing a scene from a nightmare. Then, as quickly as it began, the search ended. The special forces filed out, leaving the house in ruins and David on his knees in the wreckage. No apology, no explanation, just silence and the distant sound of sirens. In that moment, David realized the truth. It wasn't just Marcus who was under suspicion, it was all of them. And as he looked at the shattered remains of his home, one question burned in his mind. How do you rebuild when the world refuses to see your humanity? In the days that followed, the Johnson home stood as a silent witness to everything that had been lost. Marcus survived, but the scars, both seen and unseen, ran deep. He woke from surgery to a world forever changed, his dreams of college and basketball now shadowed by fear and uncertainty. David tried to hold his family together, but every time he looked at the broken windows and scattered memories, he wondered if things would ever feel safe again. The community was divided. Some neighbors brought casseroles and apologies, whispering that this shouldn't have happened. Others avoided eye contact, afraid to confront the truth. The police released a statement calling the shooting regrettable but justified. The special forces never explained why they'd stormed the Johnsons' home, and no one was held accountable. But the story didn't end there. David refused to let his son become another forgotten headline. He spoke at town halls, demanding answers. He shared Marcus's story with anyone who would listen, determined to turn their pain into purpose. Slowly, others joined him. Families who had faced their own moments of injustice, voices that had been silenced for too long. The Johnsons. Fight became a rallying cry, a reminder that behind every statistic is a family, a future, a life that matters. Their courage forced the town to look in the mirror and ask, how many more times will we let fear and prejudice destroy what we claim to value most? As you watch this, ask yourself, what would you do if it happened to your family? Would you stay silent, or would you stand up and demand change? Because real justice isn't just about what happens in courtrooms or headlines. It's about what we choose to do together when the cameras are off and the world stops watching. Share this story. Start the conversation. Be the change.